Military success usually comes down to simple, grim math, limiting your casualties. You want to ensure as many deployed soldiers as possible survive to come home. This chart shows how one army broke that math. On the left, a standard casualty curve, where troop numbers drop over a campaign. But on the right, a negative casualty rate. 80 men marched out, and 81 came back. The army behind this statistical glitch belonged to the tiny European Principality of Liechtenstein. It remains the only recorded instance where an armed force finished a military campaign with a larger roster than it had when it started. In 1866, the Austro-Prussian War tore through Central Europe. Nations mobilized on an industrial scale. The continent braced for mass casualties as advanced artillery and thousands of troops were pushed toward the front lines. Liechtenstein was allied with Austria, which meant they were legally bound by treaty to join the fight. They mobilized their entire military might, exactly 80 soldiers. Their orders were straightforward: march to the Brenner Pass and hold the line, ensuring no enemies crossed. It was a microscopic force stepping into a brutal theater of war, tasked with surviving a heavily armed combat zone. The 80 men completed their march and arrived at their designated defensive position. Instead of artillery shells and trench warfare, they found sweeping mountain vistas, quiet railway lines, and crisp alpine air. Then they waited for an enemy that never arrived. Not a single hostile soldier approached the pass. The men spent the duration of the war drinking in the views, enjoying the quiet, and avoiding combat entirely. They executed their defensive mandate to let no one pass with flawless precision, mostly because nobody actually tried to pass. When the war ended, the unit packed up and made the unbloodied trek back to their capital city of Vaduz. Upon their return, the commanding officers initiated standard post-campaign protocol, a final roll call to officially tally their losses. The count progressed down the line: 10, 40, 70, all the way to 80. But there was still a man standing at the end of the line. The final tally locked in at 81. The military bureaucracy was stunned. They had sent a platoon into a foreign conflict and accidentally expanded their armed forces. Historical records and local lore point to two likely identities for the extra man: an Austrian liaison officer or an Italian friend they met along the way. He wasn't a prisoner of war or a defecting spy. He was just a local who decided to tag along. The surrounding regions were messy and volatile. The troops liked his company, so they simply offered him a safe escort out of the war zone. It was a perfectly peaceful military acquisition. The only thing they conquered was a new friendship. The 81 men arrived back in the Principality with a mathematically impossible 101% survival rate. In 1868, just 2 years after this mission concluded, the Liechtenstein government officially and completely disbanded its military forces. While 19th century warfare was largely defined by mass mobilization and high casualty counts, Liechtenstein's final mission followed a different path. It left behind no records of combat or strategic gain, only a surplus of one person. The final legacy of Liechtenstein's military is not one of conquest, but of a quiet mountain deployment that ended with a single unexpected friend.